I'm letting everybody in. Yeah, they all come anyway. There you go. There's a few on. Hi, everybody. Just letting everyone in. Everyone's coming in. That's good. I can see some lovely faces. We like that instead of just two initials. Just wait a little bit longer. A few more people coming in. All right, we'll get started then. So welcome, everyone. This is our 13th Lunch and Learn in the series this year. So very, very exciting, and the year is finishing very fast. But today's Lunch and Learn is hosted by Indeed. And Indeed have been partners, platinum partners, with the FCA for over 6 months now, and basically have been working with lots of our franchises, businesses to find talent, which is what they do best in Australia. So today we're going to hear from James Cook, who's the National Sales Director for Franchise, and Katie, who is the National Account Manager for Indeed. They're actually going to just run through how franchises can hire talent faster and more cost effectively, which I think we'll all agree is at the forefront of our plans for 2025. So over to you, James.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Helen. Good afternoon, everyone joining us today. Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen up, so please bear with me for one moment. Fantastic. Has that worked?
Yes.
Excellent. Helen, so thank you again for having us here today. We're so excited to have partnered with the FCA for this year. As Helen mentioned, everyone, my name is James and I lead national sales for franchise at Indeed. And my parents actually operate a chain of franchised hairdressing salons, so I have a particular interest in this space already. And before anyone does ask, they absolutely do use Indeed to advertise their job ads and to find hairdressers around the country. So that's me. Katie, I'll throw to you for a quick introduction before we jump into today's session.
Hi, everybody. I am Katie Courage. I am a National Account Manager at Indeed. My parents don't own a franchise, but I do a lot of work in the franchising space. It's something that I'm really passionate about, and any excuse to talk about it, I take. So I'm very excited about today, very grateful to be here. So thanks for joining.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Katie. So everyone, the topic for today, how franchises can hire talent faster and more cost efficiently using Indeed. I thought we'd start by going through a couple of slides just highlighting what Indeed is and the key differences between it and, say, a traditional job board. We're then going to remove the screen share, and I'm going to be doing a bit of a Q&A with Katie Courage. She manages some of the largest franchise accounts we have here at Indeed, and as a result of that has a really in-depth understanding as to what some of their challenges are, but more importantly, what some of our solutions are to solve those challenges. So before we jump into that, we are a search engine for jobs, pure and simple. What's different about us? Well, not only can job seekers search for jobs posted directly to Indeed, but they can also search for job listings posted everywhere else. Places like company career sites, general and niche job boards, online news sites, government workforce sites, recruitment agency job boards. We can find all of these jobs and present them back to the job seeker in one place. Essentially, job seekers starting on Indeed can be sure that they are leaving no stone unturned with access to more jobs than anywhere else. What this looks like for employers, then, we are a little bit different again to a traditional job board. To begin with, for franchise businesses, we're free. That's right, it's free to post your ads on Indeed. Of course, Katie and I do need to get paid though, so we monetize our job listings. This again is a little bit different to how a job board works. Essentially, you decide how much your ad costs. You won't sign a contract or have a license with us, and you won't ever need to repost. And this is all thanks to our pay for performance model, which puts the power back in your hands and your paid ads ahead of all the free ones that are already on the site. Globally, we've been helping people get jobs everywhere for 20 years now. Every month, 350 million unique job seekers choose Indeed to help them find their next job. And they do this in over 60 countries and in 28 different languages. Locally, and combined with our sister company Glassdoor, we see 8 million visits each month right here in Australia. We position ourselves as an incredibly strong alternative to our competitor here in Seek. Finally, case studies. If you scan the QR code either behind me or next to me, and on the screen in front of you now, you'll be taken to our hiring hub, specifically built for franchise businesses. Here, you'll be able to navigate to case studies for brands like Domino's, Crossmark, and Hitachi, all highlighting just how broad our audience is. So with that said, we're now going to jump into a Q&A with Katie Courage. I'm going to be putting some questions to her to understand how we can best help franchise businesses hire. Throughout the session, if you do have questions, please drop them into the chat and we will save some time at the very end to come back and answer them. If you'd prefer to ask your questions live at the end of Katie and I's Q&A, we can certainly do that too. So with that said, Katie Courage, welcome to the stage. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you.
Fantastic. I thought we could kick off, Katie, with some of the unique challenges that you encounter when introducing Indeed to franchise businesses and how you typically approach these to ensure that your clients feel supported from the very start.
Yeah, good question. Look, I think the main challenge can be communicating where Indeed can really add value to such a large group of business owners. The businesses we work with are pretty heavily decentralized, so getting the message across can sometimes be a little bit tricky. Given the current environment and the nature of the work that they do, these business owners tend to be time poor and very heavily focused on ensuring that there are no costs that aren't absolutely necessary. So I think with that, the main approach is just to be constantly listening to what the client's business objectives are and working the strategy around that. I think the great thing about Indeed is its flexibility. So it offers us the opportunity to help these businesses scale in a way that works for them as opposed to them working for us.
I love that, Katie, and especially the sort of nuances that are so common with businesses that can be quite decentralized. Would you be able to walk us through a smooth onboarding experience, what that looks like, and how you adapt the process to cater specifically to the needs of a franchise business?
Yeah, this is different for everybody, to be honest. Like success to one of our partners might look totally different to another. It's not really a one size fits all approach, and I think Indeed really allows for that. Every business has its own process, its own vendors, its own nuances. So because of that, we flex to their business. They don't need to flex to ours. As well as that, we're so lucky at Indeed. We have the most amazing group of client success specialists who are on hand to support our partners with the onboarding to make sure that it's seamless, it's timely, and probably most importantly, that it really does fit in and make sense with their processes themselves.
Fantastic. And again, really drilling down on the point that they're all totally different.
Yeah.
For the next one, do you think you could share how you do tailor that approach to be mindful of how different they are?
Yeah, I suppose to build on my last answer, this is huge for us. So like our goal is to really, really ensure that what we're doing makes sense to the hiring strategy and we're not giving anybody, unnecessary work or adding to any workloads. And And just going back to Indeed's model, it makes it so easy for us. So straight off the bat, it's easy for us to kind of build trust with the partners that we're working with. Indeed don't do contracts at all. So from the get-go, they're pretty assured that they can, pause or stop anytime they like. So we kind of understand pretty well that, markets and needs are ever changing. I think everybody will agree with me, especially in kind of recent years. So we can pretty easily pivot strategies when we need to. To add to that, I would say what's been pretty crucial to the success is constant updates and communication with HQ. We rely on these updates to make sure that we're really fitting into the strategy and tweaking where we need to. And we've seen really, really good success with this, with some of the brands that you've mentioned already, like Domino's, GYG on Australia. These companies are really big beasts in themselves. So the last thing they want to do is give their franchise partners any more work than necessary,
I totally know. I had a conversation with my mum about this just last week. I was like, what do you think is going to provide the most value? And she's like, the last thing I need is more work at any time.
Yeah.
So she's like, if there is any means for you to get the attention of a franchise owner or the franchisor at head office, you need to make sure that A, you're adding value, and B, you're not creating additional work for them because they just don't have the time, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Building on that then, what strategies have you found most impactful when showing franchise businesses the value that we can add to their hiring processes?
That's a very good question. I think for me personally, I think one of the best things about working at Indeed is just the sheer amount of data that we have access to. I think this is so important for us with this kind of sometimes complex business models for us to really be able to fine tune what we're doing. As an example, the hiring insights that we have about our job seeker reach is really something that I personally could not do my job without. We also have amazing tracking and reporting tools that can really fit into the client's hiring needs. And then similarly to that, any data that we can get from the brands that we're working with. For example, we know that different jobs, different locations across Australia might have different priorities, different busy periods that we need to take into account when we're building out these campaigns. So reviewing all that data together has been really, really, really effective in helping them get hires in those specific locations. Again, to shout out client success, we rely really heavily on their expertise in optimizing the campaigns. These campaigns are really, really fluid. So we're constantly giving feedback and making recommendations and tweaks based on kind of what the market is saying, competitor behavior, things like that. And we can, like I said, we can change things really quickly and really, really easily. The main thing that we're trying to do with that is ensure that every dollar spent is driving value in those specific locations. Every business, every job, everything is different for everybody. And I think Indeed's model really, really works well to that. And I think that's what makes us such a good partner for these brands.
100%. Katie, the cadence that you catch up with your franchise businesses, I imagine it is pretty different because they're in different industries in some cases and you're dealing with different point of contacts. How do you sort of set that up? Like, is that one of the challenges that you find in the first instance and that they're too busy?
It can be. I suppose this is going back to what I was saying earlier on in the call. It's kind of that initial explaining where we can drive value and things like that. So it can be, but once we get HQ on board, we would rely on them quite heavily to help us kind of, I guess, speak to the masses about what we're offering and things like that.
Yeah, love it. Let's talk about a client of yours that was perhaps new to Indeed, a bit nervous, time poor, conscious of costs, all of those things. What was your approach and how did you help them build confidence to give Indeed a go?
Yeah, look, there have definitely been one or two that were a little bit unsure at the start. Not everybody said yes straight away, which is, look, I mean, it takes a really long time to build out these strategies and get them right. So adding something new, I feel, and I understand that it can be somewhat daunting, especially when there are such a large amount of people business owners that can be impacted by changes that are implemented. So the way around it was really just to listen to what reservations they have. Like, we don't implement anything until there is full understanding and trust across the business in Indeed's model. Again, just going back to, we don't do contracts. You can stop or pause at any time. This really does kind of work around you. Then bringing the data into it, how flexible Indeed is. And I think once they start and they see how cost effective it is and just how much of it is actually managed by Indeed, they kind of feel a sense of ease pretty quickly on. As well as that, sometimes we have like a really good news story from stores, and that sometimes can spread like wildfire as well, which can be really, really helpful as well.
Fantastic. I do want to touch on that, the success of some of your clients. Before that, though, if I own a franchise site, say for a fast food restaurant, and I don't know if head office has a relationship with Indeed, but I'd like to get a job on Indeed. What would that look like?
If you wanted to get a job on Indeed?
Yeah.
As a franchisor?
As a franchisee, say I'm a franchisee, I've got my own store. Can I post a job on Indeed? Is it a simple process if I don't have time, for example, to go to head office?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. You can post a job on Indeed very easily. But it's better and probably more effective to do it in kind of a big campaign where we're kind of optimizing it for you.
Fantastic. And that would be down to the buying power of the group, right?
Absolutely.
Beauty. Let's talk about success then. How do you track and measure success with your clients? What kind of feedback do they give you that you find most valuable?
I think happy customers, first of all, is the kind of the first point, like the first telling piece. We pride ourselves on kind of the real partnerships that we're driving with these brands, and regularly ask them for feedback, whether it's good or whether it's constructive. The relationship is pretty open and pretty transparent, and it does make my job a lot easier. Again, if you'll let me repeat myself, the data, the results we've been getting with some of these clients really do speak for themselves. If I can give you an example, we've been working with a really big brand in Australia for 2 years, and since January of this year, they've received over 120,000 applications coming in currently at the price of a stamp in Australia. But even like the economics of the campaign aside, we know and we understand very, very well at Indeed that you need to find the best people in the quickest way possible and in the most cost-effective way. And I really, really do believe that that's kind of what Indeed does best.
Love it. Thank you. And the point around constructive feedback so that these campaigns can be refined, right, is so important. I think if I own a store in Broken Hill, for example, and I am looking for a really, really skilled chef or anything, for example, working with someone like you, Katie, that could recommend that I post that ad in, say, a different location and try and attract someone for a 6-month period or something, is feedback or advice that as a business owner I'd really appreciate.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's talk about misconceptions. Are there any that franchise clients, in your experience, have about Indeed's offerings? If so, how do you address these and help them feel comfortable?
Yeah, look, I think the most common misconception that I've come across, I can only speak to, what I've seen and what I've heard with people I've worked with, but I think the most common one I would say is that it couldn't possibly work for a brand or business that is so heavily decentralized. I sometimes get the impression that people think that it could potentially be too big an undertaking. And the good news is it's not. It's really not. Like I said, like so much of it is managed by Indeed, and nothing is implemented unless it makes complete sense and it works to their processes and they understand how flexible it is. So that's something that I've come across once or twice. And I'd say that's probably the most common one, but it's definitely not the case.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. When we think about branding products, so going a little bit deeper than the job ad itself. How important do you think these are, and how do you introduce the value they can add to a headquarters, to a franchisor?
Yeah, I think this is huge, and I don't think I need to tell anybody on the call how important it is to get your company messaging across when you're trying to find the right hires. Like, we know that the best candidates are doing their research before they click that apply button. In Australia at the moment, it's 90% of job seekers are doing their research on a company before they click apply. So, it's becoming more and more important to get the hire. Like, I did a lot of research around Indeed before I started. I'm sure there's people on the call that did the same thing. So one question I put to my franchise partners is like, how many of your job seekers could also be your customers? And when we start to think about it like that, it kind of does, I guess, highlight the importance of really getting the messaging across. I mean, like, these job seekers could be seeing that you have a job advertised, but the importance of knowing what it's going to be like when they're there, what's happening at that company is just getting really, really important.
100%. And just building on that, a good exercise that I always like to put to people when we think about employer brand and the sort of research job seekers are doing, and could that be turning them away from applying to our businesses, is to open up Google, run a quick search, what's it like to work at, and then input your company's name. You'll very quickly, if you have a scroll, see a number of different platforms where job seekers can do their research. And if we're not optimizing these platforms, or at least trying to shape the perspective being created, which is always going to be created. It's, we do the same thing to look at a restaurant review, at a coffee shop. It stands to reason for a career move, or perhaps our first job out of school, we're going to be doing the exact same thing. We spend a lot of time there.
I actually booked a hotel last night, and I only booked it because it had such good reviews. I had never heard of it before in my life. So you're absolutely right.
100%. And like the social proof thing as well, right? Like
Yeah.
understanding how many reviews are on there. Bad reviews are absolutely fine. If I look at a restaurant and they have a 5-star rating and 4 reviews, I'm immediately suspect of why that is. I'm
Yeah.
far more inclined to go for something that has 3 or 4 stars, but with a volume of reviews from people like me attesting to their experience. Katie, job advertising has definitely evolved in the last couple of decades, from classics, obviously, to job boards themselves, and now search engines like Indeed. Are there any new trends that you see shaping the industry going forward that you could perhaps share that might help everyone on the call today in their search for talent?
Yeah, I mean, like, not groundbreaking, but there's definitely been a shift towards digital first recruitment for a long time. But what we have seen is that it's really, really accelerating in recent times. Like 75%, I think it is, of the global workforce will be millennials by as early as 2025. So when we consider the online behavior of, Gen Z, this digital first recruitment is really a no-brainer, especially that kind of digital recruitment that is flexible. Everything is moving so fast these days, and I think people need to just like pivot their strategy and make sure that it's like a fluid one, I guess, and a blended one. So I think we're going to see that coincide with the branding piece that we kind of just spoke about, as this like new generation of job seekers who place a lot of weight on, growth opportunities and, culture at companies and what the companies can do for them. So that's probably what I would say.
Love it. That's a huge stat, 75% of the global workforce. And
I
yeah,
know, I was so surprised when I heard it as well.
and they're definitely online. Katie, last question, and then again, we'd love to answer any questions from the group. For franchise businesses looking to optimize their recruitment, what would you say is the first step they should take with Indeed to start seeing results?
Well, I unfortunately don't have it, but if anybody can see on James's screen, he has a fabulous barcode to just beside him. And if you're interested, you can go there to look at Indeed's franchise hiring hub. And what that has is tons of free resources, loads and loads of information about how we can support. My details are also within these slides. We can get them sent out, and I would love to learn about how we can help. I would love to just chat. Like I said at the start, this is something that I absolutely love talking about. So if anybody has any questions or anything, please don't be shy. Please reach out, and definitely check out the Franchise Hiring Hub. There is tons of all the data that I have been banging on about the whole time, all there in one place.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. Helen, that is the end of the questions we really wanted to run through today together. But of course, we would love the opportunity to answer any that have been put in the chat, and if not, any that could come in live too.
Sure. Yep. Great. That was great. Very informative from both of you. Thank you very much. Has anyone got any question? No one's typed anything yet, but what questions do we have of James and Katie regarding recruitment or the help that Indeed can give? If you don't want to type it out, you could just take yourself off mute.
I was going to add as well, Helen, our contact information will be shared with this. And as Katie's just pointed out, there's a form on the site if anyone wants to have a chat offline or away from the group too. Oh, we might have a question. I see a hand. Jan, how are you?
Good, thanks, James. Thanks, that was really interesting. Just a question, you've talked mostly about helping franchisees to attract talented employees, but do you also help franchisors in attracting talented potential new franchise owners?
It's a really great question, and it's one we get quite often in this space. The answer is no. So we are a job seeker first organization. Our very first core value is job seeker. And what that means is that we constantly are pulling every available resource we have into creating the best experience possible for the job seeker. In doing so, what we've seen globally and now here in Australia is traffic to the website obviously growing, which is great for our clients like you and franchise businesses. And importantly, and a really engaged job seeker. So we're not wasting time with loads of irrelevant applications. We're able to get and connect you with job seekers that are really here for a purpose. I work in sales, so if there was a way to monetize something like what you're talking about in the future, it would always have my ear. But as we are a job seeker first organization, I lean very heavily on that experience first and foremost, and would want to ensure if we did look at something like that down the road, it didn't have any impact on our job seekers.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Jan.
Thanks, Jan. Katie mentioned the cost of an Australian stamp earlier. So I guess the question I've got here is how much does a paid job advert with Indeed cost?
It really depends. Again, I don't know if you remember, I touched on kind of every job is different, every location is different. Like all these different locations have different job seeker behavior and different business priorities. So it would really depend. We would need to work with the brands or HQ to kind of review the locations and discuss what the best budget for those certain locations are. Like I mentioned, it's really not a one size fits all approach. So it's not just like here's the cost and off you go, that's it. It would really, we would have to dig into all that data, really do an analysis of what the hiring needs are, and then based on that we would kind of get an understanding of what an appropriate cost per job is.
Sure.
Just to wrap that up and to build on that, Katie, and she's bang on, the model is designed to be as cost effective as possible so you save money, and to connect you with job seekers really, really quickly so you make hires. If we had to put an average cost on an ad, $100 would be sufficient.
Sure. Yep. Any other questions? Is everyone quiet? Everyone's gone quiet today. Only Jan's taken her camera off. Or on, sorry.
Love that, Jan.
We love Jan.
Everyone's gone shy.
Have you got a question?
I mean, I can talk from our point of view. We used Indeed actually recently, and I found the onboarding process really, really simple. I remember reaching out to you, James, and just saying, hey, what do I do? We want to put an ad up. We haven't done that before. How do we use you guys? So we actually did, and it was a very simple, easy process. I did find the monetization stuff really simple to do. We just listed our position description we're looking for, and away you go. It was quite a quick process, and we saw I guess candidates roll in pretty quickly. What's the quick question I've got is, what is the standard, like, from starting to launch a job profile? How long does it take to, get people to apply? Is it pretty quick? Do you find that it's a quick turnaround from listing the job to going to the interview process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every role is different, but if you were to create an account on Indeed and look to post your first ad, you'd be able to start receiving applications within a matter of hours. We talked about the variance in the budget, and that really just dictates how much exposure you want for your ad ahead of those free ones. Some ads won't ever need a budget because they'll perform really well on their own. But if you've got store manager roles or whatever it may be that have been open forever and that are costing your business money because you can't fill them, then our pay for performance model allows you to give those ads more visibility, you get more applications, and you can close those roles off sooner.
Cool.
Beauty.
Thanks for that feedback. That's so good to hear that you had a really good experience. That's great.
Yeah.
I believe we hired them.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yep, excellent. And I guess what's resonating for me is you listening to the customer and working out exactly what their hiring needs are. I think that's more important than just, jumping in online, typing up a job ad and posting it, and hoping for the best, type of thing. So if anyone here on the call or that's listening to the recording, just lift your camera up, scan on the QR code, and get all the information that you need as far as that process goes. I think that's a good starting point.
Awesome, Helen.
Any other questions? I think we've got very quiet.
Yeah, quite much today.
That just speaks to the quality of the content, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so a lot of times, yes, you can have all the information
Out in the shop front.
that's already out there. So look, I really want to thank you, James and Katie. You did a wonderful job today. It was very, very well presented and very clear, and very clear of what the role that Indeed has in hiring talent fast. And that's really what most not just franchisors but franchisees need. And I love the analogy of your mum, James. Least amount of time spent, the better.
Absolutely. I will give her a quick plug. Styles Hairdressing, they're in a couple of Westfields around Sydney. So if you are in need of a new hairdresser, go and check them out.
Love it. Excellent.
Love it.
So coming up, just on the screen, our next Lunch and Learn's actually next week, because we're just trying to get in quite a few important Lunch and Learns before the end of the year. So next week is hosted by Cal Clark, our franchise lawyers, and they're talking about mastering the new franchising code, which is a hot topic, and looking at a practical overview of the proposed changes. So please jump on and get involved in that one. I'm sure everyone's got something of interest in that topic. So thank you very much to Indeed for hosting today's Lunch and Learn. Much appreciated. And thank you all for jumping on, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.